Hello and welcome to Salt and Light Television's coverage of Pope Francis's papal journey to Canada. My name is Matthew Harrison. I will be your host over the course of the next 6 days as we welcome the Holy Father to our country. And joining me today is Francis Denis, Francis Denis, I guess?
Yes, of course. Nice to be with you, Matthew.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Of course, Francis, a familiar face to many of our viewers as he's the head of our Montreal bureau, I guess.
Yes, well, it was the case since, but I was mainly the host of Église en sortie, which is one of the French programs here at Salt and Light. So it's a great pleasure to be with you, and I'll be co-hosting with you, if we can say, because it would be a pleasure to be there live and to see Pope Francis arriving today, right?
Yes, absolutely. And today is the first day, his arrival. We've got a very full schedule throughout the week. He's going to spend his first 3 days in Edmonton, on to Quebec City, and then, of course, on to Iqaluit for the last day on Friday. And we'll be here bringing you live coverage in English and in French as well, as Francis said. So we invite you, of course, there's a few things I want to just take note of in terms of housekeeping. One, if you're wondering about the broadcast schedule, we'll, of course, be previewing and telling you what's coming up, but please check out our website, slmedia.org, where there's a full schedule. And the other thing I want to mention, there's an excellent documentary on there put together by Deacon Pedro Guevara Mann, who's been helping as one of the participants in organizing the papal visit. There's an excellent documentary there, Walking Together, where it really helps to set the stage and frame the story of what's brought us to this point. And it gives a lot of important background information. If you're not as familiar with the situation with the Catholic Church and with residential schools and with relations with our Indigenous communities, I encourage you to check out that documentary at our website. It's been aired on Salt and Light Television over the last 10 days or so as well. But we are getting ready for the Holy Father to arrive in Edmonton today. He departed Rome this morning, certainly 9 a.m. Rome time. And it's about a 10-hour and 20-minute flight, and he should be arriving at Edmonton International Airport in probably about 15 minutes or so. So, Francis, we're finally here.
Yes.
We finally had it. There's been a lot of talk. 4 months, a very condensed planning period for a papal trip. Francis, what are your thoughts as we enter into this 6-day pilgrimage of penance, as Pope Francis has called it?
Yeah, exactly. So I think us as Catholic and as a Catholic TV station, we need to give the Catholic perspective, which is one of the faith, hope, and charity, basically. And the Pope, I think Pope Francis, as you just mentioned, really gave the sense in which we were supposed to look at all the events that we're going to witness, which is one of the pilgrimage of penance. That's the word he used in the Angelus, not the one that he just recited in the plane today, but the one of last Sunday. So basically, we need to understand what is penance. I think our viewers really know what it means spiritually. But I think it's also a great opportunity for us as Canadians to understand our own history, and maybe one of the greatest dark sides of that history that is ours, which is the residential schools. And I think the Catholic Church and the Indigenous peoples as a whole, but also in close collaboration with the Catholic Indigenous people, which are a great community as well in all the different, the great diversity of Indigenous people in Canada. They are in close collaboration for years now in dealing with the trauma.
Yes.
And the intergenerational trauma that is still affecting Indigenous people greatly in this country. So the Church, the bishops of Canada on one side, the Catholic, Indigenous, and all the nations, I think they are in dialogue, and I think they were planning for years and years and years this moment that we're going to be witnessing, which is the Pope Francis coming here on their land, meeting them, having touching encounters. So I think it's going to be really an important event, one that will need maybe years to really understand and to deploy.
Absolutely, and this is really a journey, and that's been made very clear by the organizers, by the different Indigenous groups participating. It is a journey. Now, Pope Francis coming is actually one of the 94 calls to action that came out of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that wrapped up in 2015. And here we have Pope Francis coming to our soil, to the Canadian soil, and providing this apology, which is what was requested as part of those calls to action. Now, one of the key leaders of the church in Canada who's been helping to organize this journey is Archbishop Smith, and we have a whole crew on the ground in Alberta, Julian Paparella, along with David LaRosse and Richard Valenti, following the Pope around. And Julian had an opportunity to catch up with Archbishop Smith, among others, to find out about just organizing and getting this papal journey off the ground and the importance of it. So let's take a look at that.
Just before Pope Francis's arrival here in Edmonton, we spoke with the organizing team of this papal visit about their hopes and dreams, what's on their hearts and minds for this historic visit of Pope Francis to the Indigenous people on the path of reconciliation and healing.
We hope and pray that we have managed to accomplish in these months of intense preparation in welcoming Pope Francis to Canada, that we will experience a new way of healing from this wound, that there will be a new opportunity to see this road that many have been walking, carrying a heavy cross, being a little bit lighter.
This will be a moment of grace. We've been doing a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work. I don't know how many people have been involved in all of this. It's just been extraordinary. I'm sure grace has been working through all of that too. That's what has buoyed us and given us the strength and the insight that we need to bring this all together. And now we're at the point where the Holy Father will be here. That brings with it a whole host of emotions. There's clearly excitement that the Pope was coming after all. Probably more than anything else, a sense of eager anticipation. We all have a sense that this is an important moment for our country. Very important in the first instance for the Indigenous peoples. This is why the Pope's coming here. And we hope and we pray that it will be for them, there are different stages along the journey, of course, that it will be for them a moment of healing that will help them along their own personal journey. And we also know that Pope Francis, he met them. He met representatives in Rome. He was deeply touched by what he heard there, deeply moved. And I think that deepened his conviction to come here and be with us. It just remains extraordinary to me and to so many others that in spite of his health limitations, right, he's still coming here. And it shows just how determined he is to be with the Indigenous peoples at this particular moment, to walk with them in their need. And he's coming at great personal cost. People recognize that, though. And the Indigenous people probably better than anyone else because they have such a great respect for the elder.
And I would like to appeal to my Indigenous brothers and sisters across this country to see that not only do we know we are loved by our Creator, but that we are loved by the Church as well. And that I hope in these days we may all come to experience that in a more tangible way by the presence of our Holy Father among us on our lands.
As an Indigenous person and a Catholic priest, I have come to see that those are totally compatible within me and who I am. And so my hope has only been that in either instance, on either side, I can help to be a bridge between those two realities, to show to the Church that Indigenous people have a place in and are welcome in the life of the Church, as is certainly already known, but then to show to our Indigenous people that the Church loves and respects and honors us and makes room for us within her as well. And so in whatever way I can help to bridge that gap, I hope to be able to do so.
Very often we'll hear people say, yes, we'd like you to help us in our healing. Others will say, no, we can handle this ourselves, thank you very much. And so we honor all of that. But across the board, it's the sense of validation. Let's validate that experience and honor it, and then acknowledging it, walk together forward from it. At the same time, the word reconciliation surfaces again and again and again. And what I've learned is that reconciliation is something that builds one relationship at a time. We have people from around the world here. And when the Pope comes, he comes as head of the Universal Church, and for everybody, from wherever they are, he comes as their Pope. And I'm hoping that his presence among us, with the symbol of unity for the Church that he is, will in itself bring all people together in that spirit of reconciliation. We want reconciliation in the first instance with our Indigenous peoples, and I'm discovering a wonderful openness to that. Reconciliation is a need that extends far beyond that particular issue, and with someone of the stature of the Holy Father, and with his unique position within the Church and within the world, I think he's well situated to help us all find the way back to one another.
All right, and that was a clip sent to us from our Salt and Light team who's on the ground in Alberta, Julian Paparella, and that's just one of many segments we'll be seeing over the course of the next several days. They'll be going along with the Holy Father to Edmonton, to Quebec City, and all over. So on the screen now, you may be noticing a certain airplane has arrived, and that, of course, is the Holy Father's plane traveling on ITA Airways. That's a A330 aircraft, if anyone was wondering, and he's certainly traveling with a whole entourage. There's Vatican media, there's several dignitaries, and we'll certainly get into that in a moment. And he also did hold a bit of a, I guess you'd call it a press conference, Francis, on the plane. And
as he always do.
Yes. What kind of things did the Holy Father say en route to Canada?
Well, as you just mentioned, the Pope, as we see, is arriving right now. But we know that there's 76 journalists, which we have our very own Jen Kopstik, our journalist, senior bureau chief in the Vatican at Salt and Light, she is going also to give us some insights of what really happened during the flight, because the flight just arrived. But we know already during the press conference the Pope talked about the day today is Grandparents' Day, which is an important element for Pope Francis' agenda during this papacy, because he really wants to stress the fact that it's important to have really all the generations not living on closed doors, but he wants to get people to connect all the different ages. So what he says on the plane, he said we should get back to the grandparents, which means that the young people need to be in touch with them, get back to the roots. So for Pope Francis, it's important for the youth themselves to know their grandparents, because they are the ones who can share with them their culture, their history, and all the elements of languages. And I think it's not necessarily, it's not by case maybe that the Pope is arriving on this particular day here in Canada, because as we know, the Indigenous people, they really have a particular trait of their culture is to put a very big emphasis on the elders, which are those who are transmitting all the wisdom and the culture and the language and all the different practices and rituals that they have. So I think at the same time that he was saying that in the press conference in the plane, I think the very fact of being here today and to initiate and start this beautiful pilgrimage, I think it's going to, like we said in the first place, we said that it's going to be a penance for the Church, a penance for our Canadian history, but I think it's going to be also something of reconciliation, and the Pope will stress what is the role of Indigenous people in our present day here in Canada, but in the entire world. So if something can be one of the elements that they can inspire us basically today is the really important aspect of that culture, which is the importance that they give to the elders and grandparents.
Absolutely, and you know, it's also interesting that this trip comes during the time period of the feast of Saints Anne and Joachim on July 26th. And in fact, when the Holy Father was addressing the delegation back at the end of March and the beginning of April, he did reference that and say perhaps that could be, you know, on Canadian soil at the time of that feast. And you're exactly right, Francis. Certainly elders and knowledge keepers are so well regarded within the Indigenous community. And, oftentimes just in their traditional way of life, you might have the parents working on a trap line or out hunting, and it would be the care of the children that would go to the grandparents, and they would educate them and share in the traditional knowledge and share in their way of life and share their culture and their language. So I think that the timing of the day is wonderful, and the connections are spot on. Certainly just some of those lines that you were saying, talking about people connecting and how important it is to connect. I had an opportunity to listen to a news conference held by some representatives of Treaty 6, who we'll be seeing throughout this journey, as Edmonton is within the Treaty 6 territory. And they were talking about how the impact of residential schools and how that took away that opportunity to have that transmission of knowledge. Now we're seeing here, looks like Prime Minister
Justin
Trudeau
meeting with
elders. So the Prime Minister is in attendance for the arrival, as is the Governor General, and multiple representatives from Indigenous leadership as well. Now the Holy Father has not gotten off the plane, and as we did note, there is a full delegation with them. In addition to media, you have several representatives, including 2 Canadian cardinals, in fact. Cardinal Ouellet, who's the head of the Dicastery of Bishops, as well as Cardinal Cherney, who's a Canadian Jesuit who was actually just made a cardinal in 2019. Now, Cardinal Ouellet's been a cardinal for some time.
One important aspect of Cardinal Ouellet, as we are seeing the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau meeting with the Indigenous First People representative, is that Mark Ouellet is a Sulpician priest.
That's right.
In the beginning, and he was the rector of St. Joseph Seminary in Edmonton from 1994 to 1997. So for him also is going to be a come back to the roots, let's say,
That's right.
as the Sulpicians are dedicated to the formation of priests and running seminaries.
Absolutely. And now we were, beside Prime Minister Trudeau, that was our Governor General, Mary Simon, as well as her husband, Mr. Whit Fraser. And then we can see that Metis sash on that greeting hug. We've got representatives, of course, from First Nations, from Métis, from Inuit. I see some familiar faces from the delegation that went in March and in April, or end of March anyways, beginning of April.
An interesting fact is our Governor General is Inuit herself, which is really something that maybe that didn't happen by case either.
Yes.
It's really important that the Indigenous people become part of all of the institution of Canada, so they might get the representation they deserve. Her Excellency the Right Honourable Mary May Simmons was sworn in 2006 in 2021 on July 26, as a Canadian first Indigenous Governor General. She's the 30th Governor General since the Confederation. She was born in Kanji-Sualujuak in Nunavik, which is one of the. We're going to learn a lot during this papal coverage of
Yes.
Indigenous people, Indigenous culture, and how do they think about their own territory. We know, for instance, that the Inuit, they have their own territory, which is the Nunavut. But you have Inuit also in Quebec, which is the Nunavik. And so we're going to learn a lot about how the Indigenous people themselves see Canada. And
Right.
I think we're going to learn a lot, and we're going to, and I think also one of the historical importance of that trip is to how the European Canadians and the native can know each other better. Because sometimes we talked about, even of us between the French and English, we often talked about the two solitudes, as our journalist Julian Paparella said in our pre-show. I think it's maybe the same thing between the European tradition and the native people, but also between the native people, because we know how diverse is the reality of Indigenous people in Canada.
Yes, incredibly diverse, and of course you have, as we'd mentioned, Inuit, you have First Nations, you have Métis, and all have their own different aspects and different components of the culture. And I think that it is really an opportunity of learning about each other. It's amazing the lack of knowledge that's really existed, but certainly over the last few years there has been an increase in willingness and interest, I guess you could say, for people wanting to learn more about the different cultures and how we can work together better. In fact, of course, the theme of the papal trip being walking together. And as I had mentioned off the top, it is seen as very much a journey, and this is one of many steps, and there's still much more to go after today. In fact, it was one of the chiefs speaking at the news conference on Thursday or Friday from Treaty 6, who did say that this isn't kind of a one and done experience. There's quite a bit to continue. And I know the Canadian bishops under the CCCB, the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, they've certainly committed to ongoing reconciliation and truth, and one of those aspects has been a fund to help offset and to provide funding for different things such as, say, like counseling and just for really building bridges and helping to support in Indigenous culture.
And obviously this pilgrimage of penance is called Walking Together. Mm-hmm. So that's the main theme. We're not here to walk alone or to walk in separate ways. We're all there to start and continue this process of reconciliation and build this Canada, build this new Canada all together, respecting the weight of history, making truth about it, but also how can we start over, let's say, and have a better understanding. And now, as Canadians, we need to know them better. So if we can give some indication about some statistics, let's say, about the Indigenous people here in Canada, those numbers are come from the government of Canada. We have about 50 different nations here in Canada. There is about 630 reserves here, 50 languages. They're they're all numbers of 70 maybe languages spoken here in Canada. And the population of Indigenous First Nations is 1,673,785 people, which is a great number of people. If we talk about the Métis, we have 587,545, which is also very important. And if we talk about the Inuit, we are about a population of 65,025 people, which is less people we can say. But one of the important facts is that it's a really young population.
That's right.
And it is growing fast. That's one of the key elements. Maybe it's not the same for the rest of the population. If we put aside immigration, I think Canada is getting older, if we can say. Right. But if we can say something, is that the Indigenous people in Canada are really young. Is there a fresh new generation that is coming up, and I think it's a valuable, very valuable resources for all institutions and all dimensions of society here in Canada. Everywhere, if we speak in Quebec, we speak in the western part also of Canada.
Absolutely.
Which is the place where the biggest amount of Indigenous people are in the west part of Canada as well. So that's an important fact. That's maybe one of the reasons why he wanted to go in Edmonton in the first place. Is it the best way to gather as many Indigenous people as possible?
Yes, I think so. There certainly is several reserves throughout Alberta. Not only First Nation reserves and the treaties. There's certainly Treaty 6. There's Treaty 8, but there's also multiple what are called Metis Settlements. So a difference, I guess you would say, between First Nation and Métis. In Alberta, Métis are recognized as having a claim to land. And so you have a variety of these settlements. Some will go by a Métis nation, others as a Métis community. So you have really quite a diversity of Indigenous in Alberta itself. And also there's, of course, the wonderful pilgrimage site of Lac Sainte Anne, which is just north of Edmonton, probably about an hour north, I would say. And it's certainly a very important part for Indigenous culture. It's a gathering place. I believe in original Cree, First Nations called it God's Lake. It used to be seen as an Indigenous pilgrimage site, and then when missionaries came, it became I suppose you'd say more of a Christian pilgrimage site. And there we have a Fiat, I believe that is. Fiat 500X, that's right.
White.
There you go. To match the Holy Father's outfit, of course.
So the welcoming protocols ceremony are about to start.
And we should note that there aren't any speeches scheduled for this arrival. This is very much just the Holy Father and his group. I guess you'd call it, I believe the Italian name, and I might be mispronouncing this, so I do apologize, but seguito, which is essentially a following or his papal entourage. And that includes Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State. We've got Archbishop Edgar Penapara, who's also with the Secretariat of State. He's an Archbishop of Venezuela. Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher, who is involved with some of the diplomatic relations with states and international organizations.
We just saw the moment that the bishop, the archbishop who just came up the stairs, I think it's Monsignor Ivan Jurkovic, who's the nuncio
that's right.
In Canada. It might be a part of the protocol to be the first to meet the Pope when he arrives in a new country. He met his own ambassador, which are the nuncios.
Exactly.
So I'm pretty sure they have a little conversation at the moment, saying everything that is going to happen right now.
Yeah.
And we look forward to see Cardinal Parolin, the nuncio, and his delegation are coming out of the plane.
There's
Cardinal
Archbishop
Ouellet, of
Gallagher,
course.
Cardinal Ouellet.
Cardinal Cherney, our Canadian cardinals, and clerical dignitaries.
Exactly. Yes, as part of that greeting, the Apostolic Nuncio, who's based in Ottawa, Archbishop Jurkovic, and he would have been joined with the head of protocol for the Government of Canada. That's Mr. Stuart Wheeler. So as you said, Francis coming to greet the Holy Father and welcoming him formally. And we'll have several of the Holy Father's entourage, the seguito, exiting the plane. Now they'll also be greeted on the ground by several other prelates. Of course, among those we have Archbishop Smith, who we heard from earlier in the broadcast as part of a clip from the team. There'll also be Bishop Raymond Poisson, who's the head of the CCCB, the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, and as well multiple representatives from our Indigenous communities, of course, the Prime Minister, the Governor General, Mary Simon, and this is all part of that kind of the formal protocol, and that's, we do often think of the Holy Father as a spiritual leader, which he is, but at the same time he's also the head of state, Vatican City State, and so there are certain government protocols that are followed when we do have the Holy Father visiting different lands. And how blessed are we to have this trip? Earlier, the Holy Father did cancel a trip to the Congo, so I know that Archbishop Smith also spoke of it, that how determined Pope Francis is to be in attendance. And in fact, this is the first time that a Pope has set foot on Canadian soil since 2002. Of course, John Paul II, the great traveling pope, the great missionary pope, visited Canada in 1984. He crisscrossed the country. Well, I guess he went across the country. And then he came back in 1987. He attached that onto a trip to the U.S. For those of you who may have been following it some 30, 40 years ago, weather prevented him from visiting the Northwest Territories, and he sent a message saying, I will be back, and he did come back 3 years later. And then, of course, he was back to celebrate World Youth Day in 2002. So Pope Francis, the first Pope to visit Canada since John Paul II. Now, interestingly, back in 2008 at the Quebec City Eucharistic Congress, Pope Benedict provided a video message and sent his greetings, of course. And one of the presenters actually at the Eucharistic Congress, and I very clearly remember this, being part of the coverage team with Salt and Light, was Cardinal Bergoglio. Oh my goodness, having a hard time with words today. Bergoglio, thank you. Who of course went on to become Pope Francis. So he has been here in Canada. He did provide a teaching on the prodigal son, which, how interesting is that? Having this dialogue, this presentation on the prodigal son and forgiveness and reconciliation. And here, some 14 years later, he is coming to Canada and visiting communities in Canada to bring this message of reconciliation and to bring people together.
Yeah, and in an interview given to Vatican News, the Cardinal Parolin, the Secretary of State, he really gave two important keys to read this event that we're going to witness this visit to. The first one we already talked about is the penitential attitude. So basically, there's no many of us, when we see the Pope, we have the tendency to celebrate, let's say. Some people from the church have said maybe that's not the proper term to use this time, because it's not necessarily entirely a celebration.
Sure.
You know, because the Pope comes here to recognize the suffering of all those who suffered injustices into the residential schools. So the celebration is not necessarily the one that we are going to. It's not the right attitude, let's say. So a penance, recognition of what happened, and the second time is the purification of the memory, because it's not a proper attitude to make like, okay, we suffered in the past, make sure we will hide it. It's not the right way to face the memory. It's not the proper way to heal, even psychologically. We need to face what happened in all its dirtiness, I might say.
Sure.
And once we have done that all together and to acknowledge all the suffering that happened, then we can make justice, reparation, and then ask for forgiveness. And some will say, yes, Pope, let's put it that way, we forgive you.
Yep.
Some won't. Some are not ready yet. So that's why it's not like you said before, it's not a one thing. It's not the Pope, okay, the Pope came, the Pope acknowledged, the Pope asked for forgiveness. No.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing situation. It will take years, maybe decades.
That's right.
To go through all this, because we know it's an intergenerational trauma, which means that it's not only those who have directly been into those schools and maybe have abuses there. It's their children, all the victims of the third, fourth generation. So I think being there, I've been into some reserve doing reports just previously to this visit, and mainly all the people. We cannot say mainly that's exactly, because it's different people have different vision of it, and everybody is not in the same place.
Sure.
But the one I have met, they said it's for our children that we do that. It's for them, because as we said, it's a very young population. So basically, we don't want to reproduce all what happened. We want to heal.
Absolutely.
And the Pope is really, I think it's a prophetic act to come here and to say, you're suffering, but the future of the younger generation is so important that I will come here and make sure that the Aboriginal not only heal, but also he's putting the spotlight on them also. Because I think our world, our technology, and all the environmental issues that we're facing today, we have so much to learn from them.
That's right.
So we need to know them better, but we need to know them better because they have a lot to teach us.
That's right, yes.
So I think that's what the Pope is going to, it's maybe another part of the...
and it's that walking together that,
Yeah.
that we've been talking so much about. Now, the vehicle you see there, the Pope is in the car. The Pope has disboarded the plane, or disembarked the plane from the back, actually, and he is traveling now with his security team and with the medical professionals, and they'll be bringing him to the front where the delegates were gathered. That included his own entourage. It also includes leaders of Indigenous communities in Canada, whether it be of a specific First Nation or the representative. So, for instance, we have the Grand Chief of the Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations, Chief Greg Desjardins. So he is a residential school survivor, but also he is the representative of several First Nations in the Treaty 6 area. As well, there are several elders here who have come to greet the Holy Father, either to express thanks or just to share a bit of their story. We've been told that throughout this journey, the Holy Father is very much going to have a lot of these moments where he has these kind of off-the-cuff greetings with people. That's something that he wants to do. And we see people getting in position here. There's the back of Prime Minister Trudeau as the Holy Father is getting out of his car. Now he will be in a wheelchair throughout. Of course, we've been hearing in the news about just challenges with mobility, and I think that's, it really is a testament to his perseverance and tenacity to really want to continue with this journey, so that he can remain committed to visiting Canada and to meeting with the Indigenous people. And here he is meeting the Governor General, Mary Simon. And that would be her husband, Whit Fraser. So quite the journey from Rome, about 10 hours, and a bit of a change in temperature. I believe it's with the humid exit feels like 39 in Rome right now, but in Edmonton it is a considerably more comfortable 24 degrees Celsius. As I said, there won't be any speeches today, other than these, just these personal meetings. And then he will head to St. Joseph's Seminary, where he will be staying overlooking Edmonton Valley, a very beautiful location.
So now I believe there's a time for a photo op.
Yes,
yeah.
There
Maybe some welcome greetings.
So again, sorry, go ahead, Francis.
I was just describing as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau sitting on the chair.
And this is that aspect of the trip where it's maybe a little bit less pastoral than it is more of a head of state, that more political piece, where as the head of the Vatican City State, he is carrying out his duties in meeting the heads of Canada, the Governor General, of course, representing Queen Elizabeth, and Prime Minister Trudeau, the federal government. So the drum song performed by representatives from First Nations drums are very important to First Nation cultures. It's my understanding that First Nations see drumming as the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And they would make drums out of animal hides and carved from wood. And it's not uncommon, certainly, to have a drum song before a significant event that may have an indigenous tie-in or have some significance for a particular community. I've had the opportunity to attend some, and it's quite impressive because it's not only the beating of the drum, but as you can see, very much a vocal performance, and it is very much what one would consider a form of prayer. Certainly, song and drumming and dance as well, seen as sacred for Indigenous communities, and now this exchange of gifts and exchange of a moment with the Holy Father.
Most of them are talking to him in English, and there's an official translator beside the Pope, as we can see.
Yes.
He's Marcel Caron, a priest from Quebec. He's also a member of the same Institute of Cardinal Lacroix.
Oh.
He has been missionaries in South America.
Okay.
So
Yes,
I presume he's translating in Spanish.
Exactly.
To Holy
Yes.
Father.
Yes, the Holy Father, of course, most comfortable in Spanish. So he will be, when he speaks, he will be speaking in Spanish, but of course with translation. And Francis, you mentioned Cardinal Lacroix, and he, of course, will be joining in. All the cardinals, Cardinal Thomas Collins as well from Toronto will be part of the delegation that will journey with the Holy Father across the country. You can really see that the Holy Father is quite engaged when he meets people, when he has that opportunity to speak one-on-one with different individuals. It really, he lights right up, and he seems very delighted to be hearing any kind of story about the gift that they're providing or any kind of a greeting. Not quite sure if that's him, but it may be Chief Gerald Antoine, who's the regional chief of the Dene Nation. And that is Nathan Obed, who's the president of the Inuit Taprilit Kanatani. He was part of the delegation to Rome earlier this year. Now, these are some local dignitaries. I believe that is Mayor Sohi, the mayor of Edmonton.
And then we turn to the Vatican dignitaries meeting the head of state in Canada, Metis Settlements, the head of state, and Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister.
I think we'll be seeing a lot of those cardinals, Cardinal Trini, Cardinal Wilmette, Cardinal Parlin, Cardinal Croix there, Cardinal Collins behind him. Some familiar faces, I'm sure.
And then Monsieur Raymond Poisson, Bishop of Saint Jérôme Mont-Laurier and President of the Catholic Conference of Catholic Bishops, and Monsignor Smith, just behind him, who's the coordinator of the papal visit.
That's right.
So the two of them have worked closely for the last weeks, because it's a very short planification.
Yes.
Short planning.
Yes, they planned the trip in less than 4 months, which is no small feat. And I know it's been very, very demanding. Archbishop Smith certainly kept very busy. He's got a very active diocese, in fact.
We may have a world record for the shortest time to organize a papal visit in a country.
That's right.
Except Italy, but Italy doesn't count.
Yeah,
it's close to
exactly. It's interesting. The Archdiocese of Edmonton, a very vibrant diocese, and it was first established actually as, I believe, the Diocese of St. Alberta, and then it split off, and Edmonton became the metropolis. Then you had the Diocese of Calgary splitting off from that. There's also the Diocese of St. Paul, which is actually my home diocese. I'm from Alberta originally. Well, not originally, but currently. As well as McClellan. There's 4 dioceses in Edmonton. But of course, in Alberta, Edmonton being the largest. So now the Holy Father is wrapping up here in terms of his official business and the photo op, as you said, Francis. The obligatory photo op that is expected when a head of state comes to visit, and then of course we'll have very much a pastoral visit throughout this week. A lot of different and very important and significant gatherings throughout the week that I really look forward to seeing, and I think certainly seeing the Holy Father engage with the different representatives from the Indigenous community and just the smile on his face. I think he brings a lot of a positive approach, a very humble approach, though, that I think is needed as we look towards that reconciliation.
Mm. And I think it was a very good move from the organizer to put some beautiful music, beautiful chant of Indigenous people, which are by their very nature very powerful.
Yes.
And you can feel the history and the depth of that particular culture, and I think that may have done a strong impact on his holiness.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to mark him for the entire day, and it's going to reflect on that particular expression of their culture.
Yeah, and we'll see that peppered throughout the different activities. You'll see it might be traditional drumming. There might be other aspects that'll all be incorporated into these different events. So for the rest of the day, really, the Holy Father is resting. He's going to be going, as we said, to St. Joseph's Seminary. It's probably about a half an hour away from the airport, maybe 40 minutes, depending on traffic, overlooking Edmonton Valley. It's very beautiful and scenic. The Archdiocese of Edmonton, just as a little bit of background, the population in the Archdiocese is about 1.8 million, but there's about 436,000 Catholics. So it's a very strong Catholic contingent. There's about 122 parishes and missions, lots of religious orders. In Alberta, like Ontario, Catholic education is government funded. So there's a lot of schools that you'll see the priests coming in to visit, associated with parishes as well, and a young population, of course. In Alberta, a lot of different aspects and industries, from farming to the energy sector. So you have a lot of young families coming to Alberta, and a very vibrant and diverse church with languages. I think Mass they have in 15 to 17 different languages on the weekend. So I'm sure we'll see that reflected throughout our time together with the Holy Father, and it should be really quite an excellent visit. So, that being said, Francis, I believe we're done for our opening ceremony. I'm not sure if you have any closing thoughts or anything that stuck with you from these opening moments.
No, but what I think is really today the Pope made a very long trip. I think he's 85 years old. So I think that's once talking with Archbishop Poisson, who's the main organizer as the president of the CCCB, I think the Vatican made it mandatory to have some moments to rest between events. And I think for the Pope, one of the events was his trip today, 10 hours and 20 minutes with the jet lag. I think maybe that was what he was able to give today. And the important days ahead, I think is going to need a lot of energy from tomorrow on Monday. I think it's going to be a very emotional day.
Absolutely.
So I think today the main aspect was, I'm here, I'm there, I'm going to be with you for several days. And, please, as he said in the beginning of his pontificate, please pray for me. Like he said, he was very humbled.
Yep.
Pray for me, because his mission of reconciliation is very hard, very touchy. But I think he's going to give his 100% to make sure he's there with them, walking with them, and walking all together as Canadians as well. So I think it was a brief moment today, but I think it's going to make us prepare to have the right attitude for the entire week.
Absolutely, I agree. It was excellent in setting the tone in this particular way. And, Archbishop Smith, I was listening to an interview with him, and he had a really interesting scripture reference when he was talking about this trip. And he was asking the faithful to pray for the trip, and also to pray for, and he quoted Acts of the Apostles, chapter 5, verses 15 to 16. I'm just going to read it really quickly. Verse 15, as a result, people brought the sick into the streets and laid them on beds and mats, so that at least Peter's shadow might fall on some of them as he passed by. And then Archbishop Smith made the connection of the Holy Father being the successor of Peter and being in Canada, and that shadow of Peter passing by and hopefully bringing that healing and bringing that reconciliation. So I think we'll see a lot of that this week. Hopefully, we pray for that. We pray for the Holy Father in a successful journey. We are going to be wrapping up for today. I invite you to a couple of things, as I said at the beginning. One, check out our website, slmedia.org. There's a full broadcast schedule there. You can also follow us on Twitter, like our Facebook page as well. That's where you'll find all the information about the broadcast schedule. Take a look at the Walking Together documentary done by Deacon Pedro Guevara-Mann. Again, it really does frame the narrative for this visit, and it is important to, if you have an opportunity, to visit the website and to watch it on demand. Or, of course, watch it on demand at Salt and Light Plus as well. So, thank you very much for joining us. On behalf of Francis Denny, I'm Matthew Harrison, and we look forward to seeing you throughout this week and walking together. God bless.